The King of Clients, Episode 2, The Dangerously Structured Dam. Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. Martin Luther King, Jr. Welcome back to the King of Clients. I am your host, Ryan Johnson. In our first episode, we exposed the foundation of this system of injustice, the 11 years of government indifference that allowed a predator to flourish, culminating in the willful suppression of a 60-count federal indictment. Today, we go inside the courthouse in 2007. We are going to look at the contract that corrupted the entire Department of Justice, the legal document that created the dangerously structured dam that protected the King of Clients, Jeffrey Epstein. This document was a Non-Prosecution Agreement, or NPA. It is a legal instrument typically used in white-collar cases where a subject offers cooperation in exchange for leniency. But the NPA signed by U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta's office with Jeffrey Epstein was a contract with crime built on 3 pillars of moral betrayal. Pillar number 1, the immunity tax. The first pillar was the shield for the entire enterprise. The NPA did not just protect Epstein from federal prosecution, it granted sweeping immunity to his entire support structure. It protected 4 named co-conspirators who had allegedly helped recruit and procure the victims. But listen closely to the language of betrayal written by the hands of men who swore an oath to justice. The immunity was also extended to any potential co-conspirators. Based on this document, you and I and every other American could claim immunity from federal prosecution by claiming to be a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. Think about the cynicism required to write that clause. The Justice Department, the custodians of our law, used a binding legal document to inform an entire network of abusers, facilitators, and powerful associates that they were safe from federal charges. This was the ultimate immunity tax. The powerful paid a fee, and the government ensured injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. By protecting the network, they guaranteed that the full scope of the abuse would never be known. They didn't just drop the charges, they destroyed the evidence. Pillar number 2, the silence of the accused. The second pillar targeted the weakest, the very victims the law was intended to protect. Federal law is explicit. It is known as the Crime Victims' Rights Act, or CVRA. It guarantees victims the right to be treated with respect, to be heard, and to be notified of any proceedings concerning their case. Yet, the federal prosecutor's office promised Epstein's lawyers that the deal would be kept confidential and that they would not contact any of the victims, potential witnesses, or potential civil claimants. The federal government made a secret covenant with a predator to silence the victims. A judge would later rule that this was a clear criminal violation of the CVRA. When the highest law enforcement body in the land trades the promise of justice for a secret deal, the shame is not on the criminal. The shame is on the system itself. The denial of justice is the denial of the American creed. Pillar number 3, the Scapegoat Sentence. The final pillar was the facade of punishment. Remember the context. The federal government knew they had a global sex trafficking ring that preyed on minors. They had 60 victims willing to stand up, face him, and testify to the full scope of his evil. The federal sex trafficking indictment was abandoned for 2 minor state-level solicitation charges. And the result? The charges he faced were essentially what a standard John would receive in a prostitution sting. Less than 13 months served in a county jail with daily work release. An arrangement that treated the king of clients not as an inmate, but as a favored customer, or in the words of his Palm Beach jailers, the client. The arrangement allowed the king of clients to leave his cell for up to 12 hours a day on work release. This was not a punishment. It was a concierge service. Court documents and investigative reports reveal he was not only allowed to leave jail, but that he was routinely having young girls delivered to his private office during these work hours. This man is supposed to be in jail for crimes against humanity, and instead, the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office was watching the door to make sure no one would interrupt Epstein when he was with his child sex slave victims. The Justice Department traded the key to a massive global human trafficking network for a sentence that allowed the predator to continue his abuse, operating and expanding his global crime syndicate right under the nose of the very system that claimed to be punishing him. They were actively protecting and enabling him. U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta later defended this travesty by claiming that the federal case was a crapshoot because many of the victims had changing stories and issues in their background. Hear the moral injury in those words. The system did not look at these girls and women as survivors of a heinous crime. It looked at them as damaged goods, as unreliable witnesses, as a liability to the system. They were disposable. Many of these changing stories came directly from Acosta's failure and the Department of Justice's failure to protect the witnesses and victims when the king of clients was given opportunities to intimidate them into silence before their court appearances. And in that moment, the entire Department of Justice reinforced the oldest, most cynical rule of power. The law will always protect those who hold the gold. The NPA was the greatest triumph of the king of clients. It was the moment that the guardians of the law chose to use their authority to build a dam against justice, securing an entire criminal network against the legitimate demands of accountability. But a dam of lies cannot hold back the river of truth forever. The darkness of this deception, the 60-count betrayal, the silencing of the victims, the immunity clause, is painful to confront. It is easy to feel despair, to feel paralyzed by the sheer power of the institutions that failed us. Yet, we must remember the lesson of the greatest moral crusaders. We are not afraid, and we shall overcome. The Justice Department betrayed us, but we, the people, have the power to demand its reformation. Our work is to expose the darkness, because Dr. King taught us the time is always right to do what is right.